Wan has always considered herself the type to bounce back quickly. Life had thrown enough punches her way, and every time she had come back swinging, head held high. But this time was different. This time it wasn't just some external circumstance. It was betrayal, a knife twisted in her back by the two people she thought she could trust the most. Still, she wasn't about to let anyone, especially Kim, Taehyung, and Eugene, see her broken. If they thought they could break her spirit, they were about to be sorely mistaken. It had been 3 days since she last went to university. Vine stood in front of the mirror in her dorm room, her reflection staring back at her with an unflinching gaze. She looked fierce. As she grabbed her bag and was about to strode out of her room, her phone buzzed again. Another message from Taehyung. A snort of derision escaped her lips as she swiped away the message without bothering to respond. Talk. What was there left to say? He had made it perfectly clear where his heart truly lay, and Ryan wasn't going to waste another second pretending to care. She had spent enough time crying over him. Now it was her time to rise, time to show them both that they were nothing more than footnotes in the story of her life. The campus was buzzing with its usual energy as Ryan made her way to the cafe where she always grabbed coffee before class. It wasn't long before she spotted them. Taehyung and Eugene sitting at their usual table by the window. Vine squared her shoulders, her shoes clicking confidently against the pavement as she approached. She could feel their eyes on her before she even got close. Taehyung's gaze was the most intense, his eyes widening as he caught sight of her. He looked almost desperate, like he wanted to say something. But Vine wasn't here for his pathetic attempts at apology. Taehyung called out, standing up from his chair. She kept walking, her eyes never wavering as she passed their table without even glancing at him. She couldn't be bothered. He was irrelevant to her now. He called again, more urgently this time, but she didn't flinch, didn't give him the satisfaction of a single look. Instead, she smirked as she approached the table far at the back corner after ordering her coffee with a calm, collected air. As she sipped on her drink, one could feel the tension behind her. Taehyung was still standing, clearly flustered by her indifference. She could hear Eugene whispering something, probably trying to calm him down, but Wyan didn't care. Let them stew in their guilt. Let them wonder why she wasn't breaking down like they expected. The truth was she was done. Done letting them control her emotions. Done giving a damn about either of them. After finishing her coffee, Wine turned, striding back towards the exit. As she walked past their table again, she heard Taehyung call out one last time, his voice pleading, Wine, what is wrong with you? She paused for the briefest moment, her lips curling into a wicked smile as she finally turned to face him. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with me. She shrugged and Taehyung frowned. You've been ignoring me, why? Oh, Taehyung, you don't get to ask me that, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. After saying you never loved me, that I was just some pawn in your little game to get closer to Yujin. Her words hung in the air like a sharp blade, and Taehyung's face paled. He opened his mouth to respond, but Wine wasn't done. Don't waste your breath, Taehyung, she said, her tone icy. You think I care? You think I'm hurt? She let out a laugh, one that was cold and unfeeling. Please, you were never worth that much to begin with. Eugene shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face turning red as she avoided Wine's gaze. Good. Let her feel uncomfortable. Let her feel guilty. Taehyung's eyes softened as if he were trying to read her, trying to find some crack in her armor, but Wine wasn't giving him the satisfaction of seeing her pain. She had buried that deep. Now all he would see was her strength. I'm fine, Taehyung, really, she continued, her voice steady and unwavering. In fact, I've never felt better. You and Eugen, she shrugged. You deserve each other. Have fun with your little romance. With that, she turned on her heel, leaving him standing there, dumbfounded and speechless. She didn't look back. The rest of the day passed by in a blur of classes and brief conversations with acquaintances. Every now and then, someone would mention Taehyung or Eugene in passing. Asking if everything was okay between the three of them, Pine brushed off their questions with casual indifference, refusing to let anyone see just how deep the betrayal had cut her. By the time she reached her class of the day, Vine was feeling more in control than ever. She slid into her seat in the lecture hall, putting out her notebook and setting it on the desk with a practiced air of nonchalance. She was halfway through jotting down the notes when she felt someone sit down beside her. Without even looking, she knew who it was. He said quietly, leaning closer. Please just give me a minute. I need to explain. Vine turned her head, locking eyes with him for the first time since their conversation that morning. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. What part of I don't care didn't you understand? Taehyung's jaw tightened, frustration flashing across his face. I messed up, okay, but you don't know the whole story. Oh, I think I know enough. Vine replied, her voice laced with sarcasm. You never cared about me. You just wanted Eugen. It's pretty simple. He shook his head, his hand reaching out as if to touch her, but Vine leaned away. It wasn't like that. He insisted, his voice strained. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I never wanted to hurt you. Hurt me. Vine's laugh was sharp and bitter. Oh, please, you can't hurt me, Taehyung. You're not important enough to do that. His expression faltered, the confidence he usually carried slipping as he realized she wasn't going to give him what he wanted. He had expected tears, anger, something, but Vine wasn't playing along. She was stronger than that. Get it, she continued, her voice cutting through the awkward silence. You're a coward. You didn't have the guts to be honest from the beginning, so you led me on. Fine, whatever, but don't stand here acting like you're some tragic hero, Taehyung. You're just a guy who made shitty choices. End of story. He looked like he wanted to say something, anything, to salvage the situation, but Vine wasn't interested in hearing it. She stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder as she prepared to leave the lecture hall. Wine, wait, goodbye, Taehyung, she said, firmly cutting him off as she walked towards the door. You don't get to waste any more of my time. One of the first things Vine did was throw herself into her passions, her work, her hobbies, everything that made her who she was outside of that toxic, fake relationship. Her grades, already decent, began to soar. The extra hours spent at the library, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire, paid off. She was always sharp, always ready for the next challenge, and professors began to take notice. Her English professor, impressed with her latest essay, recommended her for an internship at a prestigious publishing house. Wyan, of course, accepted the offer with her characteristic blend of confidence and flair. She also began making new connections. New friends who saw her for the strong, independent woman she was. They weren't caught up in the drama or interested in whispering about Taehyung and Eugene. Instead, they admired her boldness, her ability to laugh in the face of adversity, and her no nonsense attitude. She was finally surrounded by people who celebrated her for who she was, not who they wanted her to be. While Vine's life was on an upward trajectory, things were far less rosy for Taehyung and Eugene. At first, they had seemed content. Taehyung with his arms slung lazily around Eugene's shoulder, flaunting their relationship as if nothing was wrong. They still sat at the cafe table by the window. Still gave each other those sickly sweet looks that had once made Vine want to gag. But soon enough, cracks began to show. Eugene wasn't as easygoing as Vine had been. He demanded attention in ways that Taehyung hadn't anticipated, and their relationship quickly became strained. It started with little things. Arguments over trivial matters, passive aggressive remarks during lunch, awkward silences in the middle of conversations. The crush love phase has ended faster than either of them had expected. And without the thrill of secrecy to fuel their connection, they realized they didn't really know each other that well at all. Taehyung, for all his charm and swagger, quickly grew frustrated. He missed the simplicity of being with Ryan, even if he hadn't realized it at the time. Eugene's high expectations were wearing him down, and soon enough he began to drift. The very thing that had drawn him to her in the first place, the thrill of the chase, was gone, and without it, there was nothing left. Eugene, on the other hand, wasn't happy either. She had thought being with Taehyung would bring her the kind of validation she craved, but instead it only left her feeling empty. Everywhere she went, people whispered about how she had backstabbed her best friend, how she had stolen someone else's man. She couldn't escape the looks of disapproval or the cold shoulders from those who had once been her friends. And then came the rumors. It started small whispers behind Taehyung's back about how he had played Ryan, how he used her as a stepping stone to get to Eugen. People began to see him for what he really was, a coward, a manipulator who had led a good girl on just to get what he wanted. The respect he had once garnered on campus began to fade, replaced by sideways glances and snide comments. Even his friends who had once admired his charm and charisma began to distance themselves. No one wanted to be associated with the guy who had burned one of the nicest girls on campus for shallow fling. But the real blow came when the word got out about how his relationship with Eugene was falling apart. The very first thing he had betrayed Vian for was crumbling before his eyes. Eugen didn't fare much better. As her relationship with Taehyung deteriorated, so did her reputation. People no longer saw her as the sweet, innocent girl she had once portrayed herself to be. Instead, she was labeled as the girl who had betrayed her best friend for a fleeting romance. Her friendships crumbled one by one as her circle of friends either turned against her or quietly distanced themselves. No one wanted to be associated with someone who had burned their closest friend so cruelly, and soon Taehyung and Yujin became isolated, together but alone. It was a miserable existence filled with tension, regret, and the annoying realization that they both had made a grave mistake. Life doesn't always follow a neat script where karma quickly balances the scales. Sometimes the people who wrong us don't face immediate consequences, and it's frustrating to watch them live without seemingly paying for their betrayal. But waiting for karma for some sort of cosmic justice to strike can trap you in a cycle of bitterness and resentment. The truth is, karma doesn't always hit in the way or time we expect. Holding on to the desire to see someone who hurt you in pain only prolongs your own suffering. It's exhausting, mentally and emotionally, to keep waiting for their downfall. The real power lies in letting go of those thoughts. Letting go doesn't mean excusing or forgetting what happened, it means releasing the hold their actions have on you. You can't control what happens to them, but you can control what happens to you by focusing on your own growth happiness, and future. You take back your power. In the end, the greatest form of peace comes not from watching the betrayer suffer, but from realizing that they no longer have any hold over your life. You've moved forward, built something stronger and better for yourself, and that is a victory all on its own. With that being said, this is the end of this series, too short or whatever you call it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and tell me what I should make next. If you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram and we can talk there maybe. So, yeah, this is it, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.